I don't know. Maybe it was 9/11, but since then, when I think of war type retaliation, I just automatically concern myself with here, home, the States. Could something happen here? And fortunately, that's just not the case. That hasn't been the case. Let me clear that up right quick. That hasn't been the case, and we all are spectators when it comes to what takes place overseas in terms to how Iran and all of those who would consider themselves enemies of Western society would have their payback or get their kickback. And I was watching all the stuff on the Iranian strikes last night, but didn't really want to be hyperbolic about it or fear mongery in any type of way, and wanted to wait until the person in charge at the moment, who happens enough to be President Trump, decided he was going to speak on it. So I know this is CNN, but this is the official statement that the man put out. So let's go over it and go from there. Let's continue. Let's get it.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning.
Okay, that's hilarious. Like, he came out like, hey, nuclear weapon, not on my watch. Good morning. How are you today? That's pretty funny.
I'm pleased to inform you, the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime.
And that's good. That's one of the main things that I was waiting to hear, because I was actually in the middle of a conversation when it all jumped off and was having a conversation about Trump. And the guy's like, "Yeah, they're striking right now. They're striking over in Iraq right now." And I was like, "Okay, how many people have been harmed? How many people are like?" Because that is like the preservation of life is the end game. Okay, like I don't want anyone killed. Okay, I don't want anyone harmed. I don't want anyone to feel the slightest discomfort for the mere fact that the chances of you knowing me and you doing something to me to cause some type of pain are so, minuscule. But there are people out there who do not feel the same way, and they want to harm us as much as possible. And what it feels like is that this was, them bombing a place that they knew would send a message, would make it look as if, oh man, we getting our get back on the U.S., when in reality, it's like, it's like when you let your girlfriend punch you in the chest a few times. Like, it's okay. I can handle it.
We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well.
Yeah, so there was it, like, and the thing is that they were ordering troops out of these spaces even before that. So like they were already like packed up and ready to bounce and dip to wherever they need to be. And as far as military readiness, I mean, yeah, that, like as someone who served our military has contingency plans for contingency plans. Okay. Like, that's really where our smartest and brightest are, as well where they should be. They I'm telling you, if you ever tried to shoot a RPG from the military, read the side of the read the side of the instructions, because it says right there on the side like which way to point it and everything. It's made for the dumbest person to be able to pick it up, and guess what? People still mess it up.
I salute the incredible skill and courage of America's men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over.
Like I said in the video that I did on Iran, it's like Charlie Murphy, like not Charlie Murphy, but Rick James. And Iran is Rick James' video. They wow out, and sometimes you gotta check them.
Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. We will never let that happen. Last week, we took decisive action to stop a ruthless terrorist from threatening American lives. At my direction, the United States military eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. As the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani was personally responsible for some of the absolutely worst atrocities. He trained terrorist armies, including Hezbollah, launching terrorist strikes against civilian targets. He fueled bloody civil wars all across the region. He viciously wounded and murdered thousands of U.S. troops, including the planting of roadside bombs that maim and dismember their victims.
Now, I can't help but feel like the reason he's breaking down Soleimani's history like this, or grain of salt with all of it, because it's all third hand, right? I mean, I wasn't with Soleimani at any point in time in history, so can't speak to the man at all, and I'm not trying to. But what I'm saying is that there has been a lot of people who, on the other side, the Eddie Murphy angle of the Murphy brothers in the Rick James conflict, where we have to be compassionate, we have to be nice, we have to be sweet, we have to be all of these other things, when in reality that's not what your enemy is going to be. That's not what the people who want to do you harm is going to be. They're going to do any and everything that they can to undermine you and destroy you, and sometimes you have to take a very strong stance against it.
He directed the recent attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq that badly wounded 4 service members and killed 1 American, and he orchestrated the violent assault on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In recent days, he was planning new attacks on American targets, but we stopped him. Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood. He should have been terminated long ago. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people.
Church. And when, the folks, the Rose McGowans and the Michael Moores of the world sit there and be like, oh, we're so sorry. We apologize. I want to apologize personally on behalf of all of Americans. Just give us a moment to get this person out of prison. Like, look, man, relax. Okay, there are things that you are not everybody's equipped to deal with everything, and it's a part of the reason why a lot of females, oh, I don't want to be lied to until what you're like, oh, how do I look in this dress? And you don't think she looks that great, but you're like, so you tell her the truth and she completely freaks out on you, right? So there's a lot of feminine minded individuals operating in waters that they are not equipped for.
We continue to evaluate options in response to Iranian aggression. The United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior. In recent months alone, Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired an unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones. Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2013, and they were given $150 billion, not to mention $1.8 billion in cash. Instead of saying thank you to the United States, they chanted death to America. In fact, they chanted death to America the day the agreement was signed.
Yeah, they ain't really messing with us. It's sort of like how you can try and convince anybody who is completely married, I guess, in a theoretical sense, married to an ideology, you can't convince them that, hey, maybe your ideology isn't the best way to go. Like like feminism, you can't convince feminists that, like, men aren't their enemy. You can't convince black identity extremists that white people aren't the enemy. You can't convince Klansmen that, oh, black folks aren't the enemy. Or people of color aren't the enemy. So this is actually on a greater scale, because it's a battle between nations. And so, like, the Iranians in the sentiment over in the Middle East hasn't changed, and more than likely won't change until they get over here, get some Doritos, and hop on a roller coaster and be like, you know what, America, not that bad.
Iran went on a terror spree funded by the money from the deal and created hell in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The missiles fired last night at us and our allies were paid for with the funds made available by the last administration. The regime also greatly tightened the reins on their own country, even recently killing 1,500 people at the many protests that are taking place all throughout Iran.
And boom, the same way that there's protests that take place here all the time. I mean, the people in charge are, yes, a reflection of the people that they represent, but they don't, like, they're not a reflection of all the people that they represent. So I wanted to just drop this in case, maybe Devin or somebody's like, oh yes, war, we're going to war. Oh my goodness. He just came out here and said sanctions. Okay, we're going to keep sanctioning them. No one's talking about war for the most part. So, well, I mean, the man who would more than likely be trying to push for that, the one that everybody says wants the war the most, who is Trump, he's like, look, we're going to keep sanctioning them, and hopefully they fall back. It's still wait and see. All right. So with that being said, we're going to bring this one to an end. All the internet stuff. If you liked it, toss it a like, dislike, go ahead, do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice and you want to get videos like this every single day. Share, because sharing is caring. And YouTube and BitChute, like, aren't the biggest fans of your boy over here. And bang the bell for notifications and speak. Let me know. What do you think in the comments? There's a lot of people who refuse to listen to this man even talk. I cannot be amongst one of those people, because I want to know what the hell he's saying. I want to know what's going on. And honestly, I want to get it from the horse's mouth. No disrespect, but like, that's the way I feel, information is best disseminated. Now, like I said earlier, grain of salt, right? Because we still, he could very well be lying directly to our faces. Everything could be trash, but it wouldn't. How is that any different than what we would get from any other administration? I couldn't tell you. So, you may feel differently, and that's why I have a comment section. Until the next one.